Good evening, my friends in poetry. I want to thank Catherine and Arthur for having read before me, and certainly thank Kimberly Sims for bringing this together. It's just a wonderful occasion. I mentioned my book. I've got a fairly recent book out from Main Street Rag called Givings and Misgivings. If anybody's interested in that, you can reach me through a messenger through Facebook, or go to Main Street Rag and find the information there on my author page. It's a difficult time for everybody. I know that, with the virus going on as it is, and so many things that we're trying to compensate for, make our way in the world when it's so difficult. But we're all adjusting. I've written a few poems about that, which I'll come to toward the end of the reading. It reminds me of the small things you don't expect to happen, such as not being able to get to the barber or the stylist, which means that for you poets, it's really not too bad, because ultimately we all wind up looking like Walt Whitman. So anyway, I'm going to begin with a few poems from my Givings and Misgivings, and begin with. Sometimes I write poems where the title bleeds right into the text itself, and that's what's going to happen with this poem. What if a perfect stranger were to wave to you at Barnes & Noble one morning, and you'd never seen this woman in your life? But there's no way to ignore the incident now, because you already raised your eyebrows to her, that way you are given to do when you want to signal, oh, hey, it's you. And doesn't that suggest the countenance of our prized guest pianist last night at the concert hall? A face that signaled pain or ecstasy, or both, I suppose, hard to distinguish, visible each of the 3 times the final movement seemed to peak, only to once again decline into another of Rachmaninoff's melodic disquisitions, wherein one just might be given to recall a gaff-rigged schooner one summer's day out on the lake, its 3 sails snapping in an inconstant wind, the guest pianist back in the hall doing most of the work, a surfeit of strings just keeping up, the able woodwinds managing a game face, the percussionist, however, having the final word, even as the concertmaster nods to the much-depleted conductor, who raises his antic white eyebrows to the solo English horn, smack in the middle of it all, who is clearly pleased at last just to have been recognized. Okay, if you've ever been to the Peace Center, you know exactly what I mean. Why I am not an astrophysicist. My friend in the neighboring math and sciences suite left in the copier today an exam for her pupils. I puzzled over the stark, exotic problems, the symbols and glyphs she had painstakingly prepared, the factored certitude of the moon's tides, the measurable patience of galactic gravity. Somehow I thought I'd seen such images before, not unlike the swirling night sky of grandfather's wide, hand-painted ties hanging theatrically in the cosmos of the old Scranton house, or how I had saved the Pluto-gray Perry Como sweater of my dad's, or, come to think of it, how I could not toss out one pair of his elliptical brown brogues my mother thought I might one day want. All worthy curiosities for which I knew I would ultimately find no conceivable use. I walked the test down to her office, thinking I might spot in some corner a bust of Copernicus or a portrait of wily Sir Newton, his long flowing locks scolding me for my skepticism, or a solution perhaps to any of the more demotic metaphysical questions of our day, such as what is intrinsically worthy and timeless, and what is the purpose of useless things we must hang on to. This is the unprepared, unexpected telephone call. When the phone rang and he learned his dad was dead, my father and I walked through the wet April woods behind the house before supper, stepping just past strands of pale white birch gathered into tight, stoic families, now and again one leaning over onto the others, exhausted by whatever work it had been given to do. When ashen beside the showy dogwoods, the dark, grinning berries. Waiting for us back at the house, my mother stood looking out the long rectangular window that framed her, over Father's persistently mown lawn, looking for something not identifiable by name, peering across the now darkening street into an identical window, past another mute woman, into a similar room at boys wrestling for attention. There's a poem that may bring us all back to our first year in high school. Deconstructing Cole Porter. I figured I would ask the adults in the kitchen late one night back in the summer of '59 when the music had stopped in the living room and my dad had ceased talking and laughing with Bridget Sheehy long enough to change the long playing record on the hi-fi, by which in saying late I meant it was maybe 10 o'clock. No doubt I must have asked my mom, just then busy at the wet bar fixing old fashions, my parents having thrown this small, let's say, intimate cocktail party for neighbors and friends, maybe a few people from the bank. Just what is the begin and how does one begin it? No one knew. I went off to my room having a test to study for next morning. Actually, Mr. Dunn's 9th grade world history final. Mr. Dunn, a man well made out of so many yesterdays. Turns out he did know. He told me a Begin was a Christian laywoman of the 13th century in Northern Europe. He mentioned Belgium, who had not taken actual celibacy vows but considered herself profoundly religious. That's what Mr. Dunn told me after our test. And it was clear to me walking home that no one at that party last night was likely to begin much of anything with her, not least in light of their incompatible ages, nor given the distance from our house to 13th century Europe, nor the way, and of course I cannot be sure, several of them had surely harbored impure thoughts. Ah, yes. I taught at Converse College for 12 or 13 years, and before that I'd started at USC Upstate. And on one occasion I was given to teach the senior seminar, which was on the Transcendentalists. And so I made a few notes after one of our meetings, and this is what I came up with. What my students teach me about darkness and light. No good in touting the difficult and long-forgotten lessons of the Transcendentalists. No point in pointing out the timelessness of 28-year-old Henry David Thoreau, camped 2 miles from town in his peevish cabin, needing only one decent pencil to record his observations from last night's stars, to contemplate the temptation of dreams, the slender fingers of those dreams ever reaching for meaning as he wakes and rises and steps from the clapboard cabin, perhaps to rendezvous once more with the unsettled Margaret Fuller, who will have left to discover her purpose apart. No earthly reason to encourage them to find something in Emerson's nature that might chide them, that could inform and infuse their day as they turn the pretty stalks of their heads as one to the morning sun beaming in from the windows between us, like so many drowsy sunflowers seeking only the brightness of day. Okay, now I'm going to get some poems that I've written over the past few months, maybe back as far as January. So these are all fairly recent. And again, I will often write a title that will just run right into the text itself. If I were to tell you that the West Rome Drive-In out on Route 49 is now a Kmart, where the smart shopper can score today a second pair of canvas slip-ons for seniors for $1, you'd probably believe me, because you just learned that the little parochial school you loved and attended from 1st through 5th, you in that cute purple and white jumper, is now an old folks' home with long porch and some half-dozen squeaky rockers lined up, all squarely facing the road, maybe to help them remember when they move through time and space like anyone else. And we know full well old people are not going out of business, anything but, though no one is saying much about their style, much less shoes. And wasn't it only 30 years ago that the wife and I drove there to see Warren Beatty's Dick Tracy, he hot for the moving parts of the enigmatic breathless Mahoney, otherwise known as Madonna, she warbling and scorching her way across that 27-foot screen, my brother Tom in the back seat of our Camaro, still trying to get the scorching of Vietnam out of his head, he back there with 6 pals, all of them named Bud. I came across a book a while back, maybe now 2 months or so, found it over at Furman, where I teach in the OLLI program, the continuing ed program. And it was a book, when I got partway through it, I found the sales slip in the book, and it just astonished me. I studied every bit about that sales slip, and here's what I came up with. The name of the poem is Wheaton, Illinois. I am reading a modern novel by one of my favorite Brit writers, a book I find purchased some 700 miles from where I sit now in my comfy Carolina sunroom, a melodious Stan Getz on the turntable, a treasure discovered nearly 19 years ago on one June day, a Sunday, at 9:28 a.m. Purchased, I surmise, with a warm orange scone. Treats found at a smart chain bookstore that sadly no longer exists. I know all this because I have just come to the facing pages, secreting an unforeseen cash register receipt. My kindred spirit paid full price, plus 6.75% Illinois sales tax. I hope that man or woman loved the book as much as I. The whimsy, the fumbling sex, the narrow doors into honest human intimacy, the broadsides at America's needy academia. A book I now value all the more since I picked it up 2 days ago at my college in an open exchange kind of thing. Free. Wheaton, Illinois, a city leaning liberal, 30 miles west of Chicago. This empty building, catty corner from Aaron's classy nails and spa, tucked behind one massage envy operation. The building itself in its 10th year of vacancy. Stan Getz, now gone quiet. I think of the countless protagonists, their brio, the earthy cups of angst once purchased here. 9,000 square feet of potential, of vulnerable human possibility. You've all been to garage sales. Probably, most of us have actually conducted one, if that's the word I want. What strange things occur. This poem is unwanted commerce. Unwanted as not unwanted with an A, but unwanted with an O. The pedantic in me wants to tell you that means we're surprised. And yet this sounds like it's also not wanted. Okay, so here we go. This is unwanted commerce. Nearing 8 a.m. now, and we watch them shuffle around each other, peering with bored astonishment at throw pillows, dusty garden tools, at our own children's lunch boxes, my decades-old grad school books, which I am at last determined to part with. Another interrupts one transaction to ask if we have a sewing machine. Sorry. She returns to her little white car. My wife carefully wraps for one near neighbor 4 2-ounce cordial glasses, 2 light blue, 1 pale gold. They were her grandmother's. Unloved at the bottom of one wizened old hutch for 40 years, tight as dead hummingbirds' wings in their small box. Sue wraps the glasses in paper, fragile as the wedding gift itself. Perhaps reconsiders to whom she might have otherwise given them. She understands she will not touch these glasses again. Take my money, the woman wants to say. Take it. $4 single dollars trembling in her hand. Surely there are greater ambivalences than turning this nuptial remembrance into a commodity. We are moving to a smaller place. So much has to go. Here comes another couple to our 6-foot folding table where we have set up shop near the very entrance to our home. This odd lot of so many belongings kept apart inside, things we will hold on to for now. The woman hands me a porcelain white gold striped gravy dish which had been Sue's mother's. We had it marked at $6. The man shuffles his feet and clears his throat. Will you take less, he insists. Will you take less? I'm not quite sure where I am for time okay, I'm gonna read a couple poems now from that pertain to the difficulties we're having with the virus. And these are all written as American sonnets, which is to say they're all 14 lines long and they don't rhyme. Civic duties. So I visit this unexpectedly warm Carolina morning the Blackberry Valley Residential Waste and Recycling Center, situated some 4 miles north of the house, thinking the name alone must draw many concerned citizens to their green metal bins and baskets, to their gaping pits and able fences. Advisories instruct us how to discard motor oil and other hazardous wastes. Indeed, they take no glasses, but that 100-pound, 36-inch zenith we've hung on to since Seinfeld wrapped it up, a beast gathering dust in the back of our guest room closet, can now be pitched into one yawning steel van. 2 men, old friends, pull up separately, each tossing reams of paper and sundry plastics. No handshakes. One smiles and nods, the other turns and says, "Good luck." My wife tells me let's hear no more Pagliacci, because Leoncavallo's sad and ill-fated lovers just don't go with the lemon chicken pasta she's stirring up in a non-stick skillet for tonight. 2 zesty Caesar salads already on the table, a chilled Pinot Gris, wanting nothing so much as to divert us from the CNN coverage we know will claim its rightful place before us soon enough. Overseeing 2 hot cups of decaf and 1 shared slice of red velvet cake left over from my birthday when we had only half as many casualties 1 short week ago. We, sitting ever so tight, prepared to take in the revised toll. So I put on Don McLean's American Pie instead. I'd like to wrap up with one more thing. This is treatment plans. The physical therapist tells me she is allergic to peanut butter. I don't know how or why this came up in our session today. She says this while I'm balancing with my feet close together, eyes shut, tight as a U-boat off the Virginia coast in 1942. We meet like this at her multivalent facility twice weekly so as to dispel any lingering symptoms of my vertigo. The guy across from us getting help for a bum knee. And I wonder what the news portends of my treatment. I steal a quick peek down at the gray counter in case one of her colleagues had jokingly placed a PBJ before her. The counter, a vinyl laminate freshly scrubbed with some antifungal spray to destroy any contagion one of us might accidentally pick up, thereby killing Grandma. She tells me she is still okay for lying, though. She's not worried.